Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the July 30th meeting. Just want to begin by acknowledging we have a couple of members online, Director Arbor from Area A and Director Kerr from Comox are both attending virtually. And as we always do, we'll begin the meeting by acknowledging that we gather today on the traditional territories of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. And as we also begin by reading one of the 94 calls to action. This is call to action 53, National Council for Reconciliation. So we call upon the Parliament of Canada in consultation and collaboration with Aboriginal peoples to enact legislation to establish a National Council for Reconciliation. The legislation would establish the Council as an independent national oversight body with membership jointly appointed by the Government of Canada and national Aboriginal organizations and consisting of Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal members. Its mandate would include, but not be limited to, the following. Monitor, evaluate, and report annually to Parliament and the people of Canada on the Government of Canada's post-apology progress on reconciliation to ensure that government accountability for reconciling the relationship between Aboriginal peoples and the Crown is maintained in the coming years. Monitor, evaluate, and report to Parliament and the people of Canada on the reconciliation progress across all levels and sectors of Canadian society, including the implementation of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada's calls to action. Develop and implement a multi-year national action plan for reconciliation, which includes research and policy development, public education and resources, and finally promote public dialogue and public-private partnerships and public initiatives for reconciliation. And moving to a recommendation for a closed meeting, the recommendation under sections of 91I, K, 90 sub 2 sub B. Okay, moved, seconded, and any opposed? And that passes. And we have adoption of minutes. These are, I believe, if we scroll down, our own board minutes from July 16th, the last meeting for adoption. Thank you. In reports, we have EASC minutes from July 15th for receipt. Any questions on those? Any opposed to receipt? That passes. And next, Sewage Commission minutes for July 16th.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? Any opposed? Water Committee minutes for July 16th.
Move receipt.
Second.
Perfect. Moved and seconded. Any questions? Any opposed? And that passes. And next is the Mount Washington Resort Association MRDT renewal support letter. Let me pass it over to the CA just for a brief comment.
Second.
Okay, receipt on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to the board. Lisa Kilpatrick, our Community Development and Resilience Manager, is on the Zoom call as well, and Lisa will be providing a very brief intro to the staff report. Lisa, over to you.
Great, thanks. Through the chair to the directors, following the last board meeting, staff had the opportunity to meet with the Mount Washington Resort Association board, and we had the opportunity to discuss further their five-year plan and the annual budget. And it was really clear to us that it's really important to note that our tourism service, the Comox Valley Tourism Service, does provide visitor servicing and marketing for our whole area, including Mount Washington. But the MRDT that's collected within the Mount Washington accommodators is really important to ensure that the visitation is continually increased, and particularly for the summer season. So because of that, as well as this process has enabled us to start to build a relationship with that board, and there's certainly interest on both sides to collaborate moving forward and work together. At this point, staff would recommend that a letter of support be provided to the Mount Washington Resort Association for their renewal of their MRDT application.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that overview. So any questions or comments on that? Director Grieve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I do think that all the support we can give the mountain is well deserved. As you probably know, it's the #1 non-public economic driver in the Comox Valley. So it's our #1 source of first dollar money, and I do think that it deserves this board's support for another 5 years. And after that period of time, we may be able to work it closer into our own MRDT with the Comox Valley and Courtney for some other purposes. So I do support it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Director Grieve. And I see also Director Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I'm curious whether, I guess this is directed towards Lisa, whether they are struggling with employee housing or have considered part of the MRDT for that use, or whether they just don't, whether they even have employee housing up there.
Mhm. That's a really good question, and we did ask in whether or not there was any intention or plan to use the money that they have collected for the affordable housing. At this point, the board itself doesn't have any ideas around that. I think that one, they want to expand their board. Right now, they don't have a member that is actually from the resort. So we met with an individual who intends to become a member, and they want to expand out to include more accommodators. But I think in terms of being able to work collaboratively with us, we'll have a better understanding of those needs moving forward. And we can certainly, as we explore our regional MRDT, we'll be having a conversation with them, because there's lots of things that could happen before their 5-year renewal is up again. Certainly if there is a desire for everybody to work together, things can happen.
Awesome. That's great. That conversation started. Thanks.
Great, thanks. Great question, Director Brown and Director Moore.
Great, thanks, Chair. Do we know what the amount is that they collect there? And obviously, our 4BI is doing overlapping marketing that includes Mount Washington. I'm just wondering if Mount Washington has any partnerships with other folks in terms of that cross-pollination of marketing going the other way.
Mm-hmm.
So the first question is how much they collect, and then how that's sort of distributed, if it's solely for Mount Washington or.
So I understand that, and it fluctuates depending on the snow season and how much visitation they do have up there. I think it's around, their budget is at around 65,000 to 75,000 a year. They certainly would be it seems like there is interest there for them to collaborate with us and explore ways that they may be able to reduce their administration costs, so that their efforts can be more focused on the marketing, and so we can collaborate more through that. Right now, they don't work with another organization. They do it themselves. And so that is definitely one conversation that we'll look forward to having, is just how we can leverage those dollars and we can support them more in their efforts.
Great, thank you.
All right, and we're still on receipt. We'll get rid of that. Anyone opposed to receipt? Seeing none, that passes, and there's recommendation.
Second.
That's moved and seconded. And any comments on the recommendation or any questions? Seeing none, I'll ask any opposed. And that passes. Excellent. Next is the 2024-34 Community Works Fund Agreement. So, thank you. And second, perfect. And I'll pass this over to our CEO to introduce the item.
Thanks very much. Kelly Broughton will be presenting this report to you, and you've seen Kelly before in her previous role with the regional district, and this is Kelly's first time presenting to you in the manager of financial planning role. So Kelly, over to you on the report on the Community Works Fund Agreement.
Thanks, James. Thank you through the CAO to the chair and directors. Staff are bringing forward a resolution allowing for the authorization to sign the 2024 to 2034 Community Works Fund Agreement. The current grant agreement expired in March of this year, with the new 10-year agreement received in the latter part of June. The first 5-year allocations for all local governments have been posted to the UVCM website, and the CBRD projected allocations have been included in the staff report. Allocations for the first 5 years have been based on the 2021 census figures. For 2024-2025, the CBRD will receive $1,191,000. This amount is slightly higher than the amount we received in the 2023-2024 period. Future allocations for years 6 through 10 could change as the total Community Works Fund is reliant on federal budgets and the 2026 census status. The new agreement contains some expanded categories of project eligibility, investment for fire trucks, housing needs assessment studies, planning and feasibility studies, and detailed design work for capital infrastructure projects are now included as eligible projects. Also, the new agreement will require additional reporting as the program looks for greater accountability to ensure local governments are honoring committed funds to advance asset management programs and that funds are being spent responsibly and equitably. Thank you, and staff are available for any questions the board might have.
Great, thanks very much. Just looking around to see if there are any lights on, any questions? And seeing none, we'll dispense with the receipt. Anyone opposed to receipt? Passes, and the recommendation that we sign the agreement. Moved and seconded. Any questions on that? And any opposed to the recommendation? Passes unanimously. Next report is the June 2024 cash and investment report, which will give a sort of a status update on our investments. And I'll pass that over to our CAO.
Thank you. And Lucy Wacharik, our Chief Financial Officer, will be presenting this report, supported by Tina who is also in a new role with the regional district, the manager of asset management, I believe is the title. So you've seen Tina present before, but this is in her new role here with the CBRD. So Lucy, over to you, I believe.
Thank you so much. So through the CAO to the chair and the directors. Got a little short presentation for you today. So staff are really pleased to be here today providing the first cash and investment report to you. With an annual budget in excess of $100 million and some pretty significant capital projects, management of cash and investment is an essential element of CBRD financial administration. Section 183 of the community charter allows money not immediately needed to be invested in certain types of securities. And as a typical standard requirement, local governments establish an investment policy to assign responsibility to set principles and parameters. The board adopted a new investment policy in July 2023. And since then, staff have remained focused on advancing the investment portfolio. Diversification and securing high interest investment products has been our top priorities. So just before getting into the details of this report, I just wanted to take a few minutes just to mention the advancements since the inception of the new investment policy. So as a first step in managing cash and investment activity, and as the community charter alludes to, it is necessary to first ensure there is enough cash available to meet our payment requirements. And to do this, a CBRD cash flow model was needed. Our modeling and analysis has been completed now, and this includes consideration to both short and long-term cash needs. Multiple guaranteed investment certificates have been secured, and this has advanced the goal of diversification and maximizing rate on return, maximizing return on investment. The board's direction for socially responsible investing has been considered, and an initial investment into the MFA fossil fuel free bond fund of $2.5 million was made in September 2023. So just to circle for a minute more specifically to the investment principle for socially responsible investing, The change in this area is small to date. In essence, a transaction to purchase the $2.5 million bond in the MFA fossil fuel free bond fund. So other than this, staff have not had the time available so far to dive in more. However, I did think it important to state that a heavier focus in socially responsible investing is still a fairly new evolution. And as we met with our investment advisors from both RBC and Scotiabank, they noted advancements within their own organizations in this area and have committed to future discussions with us and potentially new opportunities and/or considerations. So as the board is likely aware, MFA is committed to responsible investing and as such will only partner with signatories of the United Nations Principles for Responsible Investing. All 6 MFA funds are ESG rated, including sustainability, responsible, green, or ethical investing. And the fossil fuel free fund does not invest in any company securities of entities involved in the extraction, processing, and transportation of coal, oil, and natural gas. The investment policy includes reporting requirements. The reporting needs to identify investment holdings, return on investment, deviations from policy, and investment performance. So with this being our first report into the board, staff have brought forward specific information which we believe would be relevant in the update. However, we recognize the board may desire additional information, and we certainly look forward to your feedback and will adjust our future reporting accordingly. So one thing to keep in mind as we move forward, since this is our first report, there's little trending information to include. And of course, this will change as we go to the future. Staff propose reporting to the board on a biannual basis, once in July or August timeframe, and that's for the period of January to June, and in March for the period of July to December. So a year-end wrap-up report. Our investment position. So this table shows the cash balance and investment balances in terms of market value. The value at the end of December 2022 is shown here as a means of a starting point and prior to beginning management of the portfolio. And as we move to the balances at December 2023, we see the building of the GIC investment to 37 million. There was a fairly high level of cash at the end of 2023, and this was due to the fact of holding some debt funds that were received close to the end of the year. The cash and investment balance was 122 million as of June 30th, 2024, a decrease of 24 million from December 31st, 2023. Over the last 6 months, staff have moved forward with additional investments. The 16.9 million increase in total investments is due to $11 million investment in GICs and an additional $4 million investment in MFA bonds, with the remaining difference resulting from earned interest or unearned market growth. The lower cash balance at the end of June is mainly due to the timing of when we receive tax requisition revenue, and that's normally in August. And as mentioned already, the key focus for the first half of 2024 was to benefit from the continued high interest rate environment and expand our GIC portfolio. This has helped us to secure guaranteed returns across the span of 1 to 10 years. And as of June 30th, 2024, including earned interest, the GIC balance reached 49 million. Just to give you a bit more detail by investment type and give you an idea about how we have investments layered to the future, we have 15% of the portfolio in GICs maturing in less than 2 years. 25% of that portfolio, of the GIC portfolio, has maturity dates greater than 2 years. The MFA investment funds are layered within 4 different funds, as you see here on the right. The money market fund, which includes investment holdings with terms of less than a year. The ultra short term includes investments with terms of less than 2 years. Most of our MFA funds are sitting in the short-term bond fund. There's 35.8 million here. And these are investments structured between 2 and 5 years. So close ties to our cash flow as well. Into the future, we will, as staff, look at the mortgage fund, and this will incorporate into those MFA holdings some dollars that are over across that latter part of a 10-year span. So just compared to December 31st, 2023, and as of the end of June here, cash holdings decreased by 25%, and our MFA bonds have increased 10%, and GICs has increased 15%. Just to give you a bit of a visual there of taking December 31st as that last point in time, and here we are at this reporting period and what the change is. And like I was saying, as we go to the future, we'll have some additional trending information here to be able to provide you. Just a few points on adherence to the policy, just noting that all securities held are rated AA or higher, and only investments in security in Schedule I banks have been secured. The investment breakdown by financial institution factor for this reporting period, our total investments held with RBC, Royal Bank of Canada, is at 26%. So this exceeds by 1% the 25% allowance stated in the investment policy. So we have those factors stated in the policy to help guide us to ensure that we're not, in essence, putting too much of our dollars into one avenue. So we keep that in mind. We're not too concerned about it. As staff at this particular moment, it's only off by a percentage, and it's very secure investments that we have with Royal Bank, that being only the GICs. But we will look to the future to correct that situation. Moving on to performance. The investment portfolio is to be managed with the objective of maximizing return while ensuring the principles of preservation of capital and liquidity have been met. The CVRD has invested 47.7 million in GICs as of the end of June. To test the performance, we are using the return gained over a 1-year period. So therefore, the total interest earned for the period of June 2023 to June 2024 is $1.5 million. And this has netted us a return of 5.72%. So we're using that as the overall weighted average of the return that we gained. And we then compared that to the RBC savings interest rate at 5.25%. So we're doing better than that. So this is the way that we gauge how we were doing on that type of investment. So next, just moving to performance information related to the portion of that portfolio that's invested with MFA. So more comprehensive performance testing is done on a monthly basis by MFA, and we have included the May report in your agenda. Of course, they manage funds, and they are going to put out their performance reporting on a monthly basis very regularly. We have included benchmarks. In this analysis, those benchmarks are also used by MFA and are considered standard in the industry as well. So we always have the MFA reports that help us to understand and see how those funds are doing. And on this slide, we've done a bit of our own comparative, and we've weighted our average return on our MFA investments, and they're at a rate of 5.23, which is greater than all of the benchmarks that we tested against. It's kind of a maybe not extremely relevant or extremely obvious what this graph is trying to tell you, but in essence, we've weighted the average of the type of return we got from MFA, and we are doing better than the benchmarks. Okay. The 2024 investment objective includes continued monitoring of interest rate fluctuations and aligning investment maturities with the CVRD's future cash flow needs. On June 5th, 2024, the Bank of Canada reduced the interest rate by 0.25% and another 0.25% in this last week. The market predicts a total reduction of 1% by the end of the year. As the economic environment continues to change, staff will focus on balancing investment maturities, maintaining optimal cash flow, and doing our best to maximize those returns. We'll put additional efforts into learning more about sustainable investment options and continue to create space within our investment portfolio to pursue those opportunities. And this will be facilitated through training opportunities and working with our investment advisors. And this includes MFA and also our advisors from Royal Bank and Scotiabank. If you have any questions for us, we are happy to do our best to answer those.
Great. Thanks, Lucy. Just taking a look around to see if there are any questions. We'll turn it over to Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Lucy, for the reports. I appreciate that we're moving in this direction. I'm just curious about what sort of extra staff resources are involved in this level of work.
Through the chair, financial services over the last year and a half or so, we have built up some of our resources, and that has been very instrumental in us making space to be able to do the cash modeling, for example, to start. So it was a task that we assigned to one of our new accountants. So we are very grateful to have that staff member and to be able to get through this very critical work. And other than that, us as leaders, myself and Tina as a manager, acting in that role as a manager of operations at that time, between the two of us, supported also by Kelly. And as I'm saying, our one new resource, we've been able to manage. And I do foresee that, well, this is critical and we will continue to manage it in that way to the future.
Great, thanks. We'll go to Director McCollum in the room, and then after that to Director Arbor online.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Lucy, for the report. I really don't have any questions. I think the report was really thorough, and I just wanted to provide the comment that I'm just very pleased to see how this policy and practice is evolving. And I think it's really important information for the board to have an understanding of. It's, as you outlined in the report, it's a really significant amount of public money, and it's a real benefit to understand how these funds are being invested, but also, this, I guess, more well-developed policy. It allows for better investment management, and that's a really important piece of our fiscal responsibility as a well-functioning organization. So I just really want to appreciate the work and say how pleased I am to see it. And I also feel that, providing this type of information in a public meeting to electeds is really a great step in our fiscal transparency as well to the public. So yeah, just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Director McCollum. And Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And yeah, that was quite a lot more detailed than I expected, which is good. But I don't know if all the directors have the same in-depth level of financial information. I might have been lacking on a couple of slides where it was slowed it down or maybe passed it over, but I just couldn't really get it. In terms of the bigger picture, though, I think a lot of us have, not a lot of us, but a lot of people have a lot of suspicion around the big banks and their role in Canada as we continue to see the gap between the rich and the poor continue to increase. I did catch in your presentation that we are relying and having a lot of conversation. Most of our investments are with the big banks. I'll be curious to see if we manage to value align with them. I'd be curious to know if we see that they are not able to provide the kind of value investing vehicles. I said a fossil-free bond. It was so small, like what, 2%, but that's a start. But I guess what I'm getting at is I'd be curious to see if local government is the smallest unit closest to the people. and credit unions in the banking industry are the benefiting people and communities the most. I don't know if we could move $100 million of our assets to credit unions, Coast Credit or Van City, but I just want to flag I do have that suspicion about trying to align our values with the big banks, and them being our our principal service offerers outside of MFA. Thanks. Yeah, there's a question in there if you wish.
I probably just have a comment or two to that if I may. So through the chair. From a Schedule 1 bank perspective, the legislation does allow us to go beyond that, and I purposely put the Schedule 1 banks into the policy, and that's a preference of mine. This is, as you can see, this is very big dollars, and it's a lot of responsibility to make sure that it's managed well for the public. So I find that from a Schedule 1 bank, that the level of security is much higher at this point. The level of risk is much less at this point. So it's from that perspective. And on the other piece, I guess my second comment would be I was actually really pleased to see our investment advisors come around to the whole socially responsible investing topic, which maybe I shouldn't have been surprised that is a focus these days. So if they're not going to be there and being able to put products out in that space, then they're going to lose out on that. And it's they're in competition with all kinds of money managers out there. So they need to up their game if they're not there already. But I was pleased that the conversations came up, because we also have to keep in mind this is big dollars to us, but it's in a lot of cases it's little dollars to some of these investment firms, and they're managing a whole lot more than what ourselves as a mid-sized local government can provide. So they're paying attention to us, and I was happy for that. And I think we can continue to leverage those relationships and also ask for, okay, well, can you look into this for us more? And we want to understand more what's on the back end of this investment. Tell us more about this. So it'll be interesting going forward. So those are my two comments, those formulating as and all that. Mm-hmm.
Great, thanks, Lucy. Director Arbor, do you want to follow up? Your hand's still up, but that may be just because it's still up.
Yeah, thanks. I wasn't gonna, but based on those comments, I think Canada has a long history of stability in our banking system, and the big banks are a big part of that. I never take anything for granted. I know people here, the board have at times a contrarian strike, and if we look in other countries, it's often the big banks that fail. If we look at the States or the history there, so we've been lucky so far. Credit unions are member owned. They have a completely different ethic and ethos than the big banks, and I will take you at your word that there's a lot of appetite, I'm sure, around value investing in the big banks. But in Canada, the big banks are also incredibly tied to the fossil fuel industry. We're the fourth largest producer in the world, and a little bit like when I talk about Fortis or other organization, I think there's an inclination to want to show green or social values in big corporations, but we'll see if they have the appetite to go quite a bit beyond just having a flavor of investment. Yep. And actually showing us vehicles that are actually benefiting people more than what we've seen in the past. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Director Arbor. And we'll go back into the room, and we got a comment from Director Brown.
Thanks, Chair. I, having been a former board member for a credit union, I'm gonna put the plug in as well, since the conversation has been raised. I know the Village of Cumberland holds our money with First Credit Union. And we also invest in other banks, but the benefit of a credit union is leveraging our investments to further into our community. So not only are we generating revenue on those investments, but the credit union is reinvesting that money into our communities. So we're getting double duty on that money. And I appreciate your cautious approach to our investment strategy, particularly if this is the first one. But I would encourage us to continue to look at credit unions. They are very well managed, and they do give us that next level of investment into our community in a variety of ways.
Thank you, Director Brown. All right, just looking to see if there's anything online. No questions there. I don't see any lights here, and this is just for receipt, and we've got a receipt motion on the table. Director Brown, do you have another question? Okay. That's fine. So any opposed to receipt? Okay, and that carries. So we're now into bylaws and resolutions, and the first one is bylaw number 835, the compliance delegation of bylaw. Second. The bylaw compliance delegation of authority bylaw moved to first and seconded. Any questions about that? It's for first and second reading. All right, any opposed? And that passes. Now we'll do third reading. First and second is third, and any opposed? And that passes unanimously. And I think